Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
Welcome to Season 1, Episode 18 of the WeCOACH podcast on Wisp Sports. Every 2 weeks, we sit down with some of the best and brightest women coaches, leaders, and industry experts in the world of sports for fun and inspiring conversation. I'm your host, Megan Kahn, Executive Director of WeCOACH. This podcast is a co-production of WeCOACH and Wisp Sports. Today's guest is synonymous with legendary coach in the women's soccer world. The longest tenured coach in the Pac-12, Lesle Gallimore, has led the University of Washington for the past 25 seasons. On the cusp of her retirement, a final run for the Huskies this fall with over 250 wins to her name. You're going to love this episode. Welcome, Lesle, to the WeCOACH podcast.
Thanks, Megan. I appreciate you having me.
I know you're headed out to France tomorrow. You're definitely not holding that plane for me, so we got a lot to get to.
We do. I actually am packed, which is just shocking. So that's good. But I do have to, my son is going to drive me up to Canada tomorrow because plane tickets from Vancouver are about $400 cheaper than they are from Seattle. So I'm going to take a little drive up north.
Oh, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to start it.
Yeah, saving some money.
I'm putting you on the hot seat out of the gates. What's your prediction?
I think there's a bunch of teams that can win it, but I really do think that Jill Ellis has put together a great combination of veterans and younger players. Even though there's some of them will be in their first full World Cup, there's a lot of U20 experience on that team. I think the U.S. is going to win it again.
Oh, I love it. Jill Ellis, dear friend, awesome coach. When this goes live, we're going to still be in group play, so we'll see how that pans out. Yeah,
former colleague here in the Pac-12 and definitely a colleague of mine and a friend of mine who has been, in the hottest seat you can be as a women's coach in our country. And she's held up, not even just well, she's surpassed, I think, what even I thought she'd be capable of doing, not from a wins and losses standpoint, but she just stays the course and she's her. And I've just loved watching her evolve into the coach she's become with the women.
It's refreshing to hear you say that because that is the hottest seat probably in the country, and there's a lot of people taking shots at her. So from somebody who knows her as well as you do, and from a tactical and technical standpoint to understand her mindset, that's refreshing to hear.
Yeah, say the word coach and you're going to get shots fired at you. So it's we all know what it feels like, and it's just, you don't want to be that person that when it's not you that you're like, oh, well, glad she's taking the heat. I feel for her every day, and she's really handled it well.
She has. It's impressive from an outsider's perspective to watch, and I think probably inspiring for a number of female coaches in the industry. So let's talk about, you grew up in SoCal.
I did.
Then you went on to become a 4-time All-American at Cal Berkeley. And then you started your coaching career right after you completed your eligibility. Did you always know you wanted to be a coach?
I did not. I think there's a lot of coaches out there that are in my generation, so to speak, who would probably tell you the same thing. Our sport was growing at the time. We were for women's soccer sort of on the front edge of the growth of soccer in this country. And so for me, it was just one thing after the other that I was given opportunities. I earned opportunities. I was put into positions where soccer just became a real focal point of what I was doing. And my college career in particular, I had great coaches growing up. I feel like I was really, really fortunate, to be honest. If it goes back to my time in Southern California, and I've had to really reflect on this recently because of his passing, but Ziggy Schmidt, former Sounders coach, coaching legend, he and his father, Fritz, who is still alive and lives in Southern California, really were on the front of developing soccer in and around Southern California. So as a girl growing up, the Schmidts were, just really key to starting soccer in our area. And there was a lot of boys that benefited from it, but girls as well. I was in one of the first AYSO girls teams, and there was a lot of the country that wasn't playing soccer at that point, and a lot of girls didn't have opportunities even 10, 20 years after I did. So I was playing high school soccer. I was playing youth soccer and club soccer because of him and his dad and their passion coming over from Germany for the game. And then I was able to be reunited with Ziggy up here when he took the Sounders job. So it was great to have him here for those years. And he's always been someone I looked up to and a mentor of mine. And he's treated females in the game, with equal respect of male coaches, and whether it was women and men's soccer, it didn't matter to him. He just loved the game, and I admired him for it, and I just felt indebted to him for how he treated me as a colleague.
Did somebody tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, did you ever think of coaching?
Well, when I was in college, it's another great person in my life who's also passed away. My college coach, man by the name of Bill Merrill, he started coaching. He's an attorney in Southern California and a dad. And he and another man ended up coaching their daughters in youth soccer in my area. And when their daughters got older, they joined my club. And so I never played for him in Southern California. I played for another coach by the name of Brian Boswell, who tended to put me in a leadership position because I played on the same team from the time I was 13 until I was 19. I joined the team as the youngest player and graduated as the oldest player. And so Brian, and Bill Merrill was the name of the man that ended up coaching at Cal. He came up, and he's a lawyer and a politician, and he ended up getting us varsity status. He ended up getting us funding. And by the time I graduated from Cal, he'd ended up getting some scholarship money for the program and really put us on the map. And he's someone that, he's synonymous with being the guy that made Cal soccer what it is. And so in my time at Cal as a player, he really put a lot on my teammates and I to be leaders. I was the head of the soccer club. And when I was a freshman, because we had club and varsity status, at the end of my first year, the club director told me that, if you guys want to make a coaching change, I can't do that. It's up to the club president. So at 18, I was told, if you guys want to get this Bill guy up here, you have to tell your current coach, who was a great guy. He just really didn't have the sort of savvy with the administration at Cal to be able to get us where we were going. So at the age of 18, I remember sitting at the old Cafe Durant with my coach and the club director and telling him, thank you very much. We really like you and you're a great guy and thanks for everything you've done. We're going to replace you. So that was one of my earliest memories of what it's like to hire and fire somebody. So we got Bill to join the program, and Cal Soccer in 1982 really started on its way to becoming one of the top programs on the West Coast. And it was interesting. After I graduated, Bill asked if I would stay on and help, and I did. And then he went on to do other things back to his law firm. I think it was costing him money to coach us. So his wife called him back to Southern California to do his real job. And in my 4 years as an assistant coach at Cal, I was doing other odd jobs. I was going to law school on the side. And I say that jokingly. My parents thought that was what I was supposed to actually be doing, but I was actually going to law school on the side. I left law school after my first year because coaching did become my passion. And at Cal, there was so much to do and so much to be done with so few resources that in my 4 years there, I ended up being the assistant coach with 3 separate head coaches in that 4-year time. So I was kind of the one whole group of players came through there, and I was the consistent person in their life. And so I had a lot thrust upon me at an early age in a great way. I learned to do everything from the bottom up. I learned to do things that I was uncomfortable with. I learned to take a leadership role and to separate myself from the players, that were very close to age with me. I learned to separate that relationship into more of a player-coach relationship as opposed to a teammate relationship. And I just, looking back all these years later, I owe so much to that opportunity and that time in my life where it became, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know it was going to become my career, but it's definitely where it started and where it was built. And I had a great foundation, a greater foundation than a lot of young women I know who start out in coaching.
So I want to know, what did your parents say when you quit law school?
Well, that was one summer of therapy because I felt terrible. I knew it was one of the hardest decisions I was going to ever have to make, to tell my mom and dad. But my mom, my stepdad, they've always been very, very supportive of me. My mom in particular, who just turned 80 last week and works full time still. She's just always been a rock and an example of what it means to work hard. And again, to be able, whatever you're asking other people to do, to be able to do that yourself. And I knew she would love me no matter what. I knew they were probably going to be disappointed and didn't see coaching as something that was going to be either lucrative or lead me anywhere, so to speak. But, I think it was more me than them that felt badly. And so I just remember it's one of the lessons I tell my kids all the time, because I do see the pressure that players, whether it's perceived or actual pressure from their parents to do maybe something that isn't in their wheelhouse to do or their passion to do. I tell the young women on my team all the time that, your parents might be disappointed. They might have a different dream for you, but I guarantee you they love you, and that it might feel, you know, like the end of the world right now. But I guarantee you, if you're happy and what you end up doing makes you happy, at the end of the day, they're going to be happy for you, and they will always love you. So I think I've helped, just through my own experience. I think I've helped a lot of young women make decisions for themselves, as opposed to, always deciding what path to take in life based on what they think someone wants them to do.
Yeah, it's when you're 17, 18, 19, it's sometimes hard to stand on your own 2 feet, especially in today's day and age where parents are so involved and engaged.
Yeah, parents and coaches, when someone else is paying for it, you feel an obligation. And I think that's for parents and for any adult in a young person's life, whether they're a teenager, an adolescent, or a young adult, is to never hold that over their heads. If you really care about them and you really want to see them excel and be happy, is that you support them, but you let them pick their path and you let them fall along the way picking it.
Well, and I think even looking back to when you were making those decisions versus some of your student athletes now, women are more visible, whether it's a career in sports or another opportunity outside of sports. But, we like to say, if she can see her, she can be her. And the more we see strong, successful women in leadership roles, those are great role models for your student athletes.
Yeah, you would hope so.
You would hope so.
I mean, yeah, you would hope so.
The operative word.
Yeah. And I think, I tell people all the time, I don't know. I've always tried to learn and grow and be better. I've not been perfect by any way, shape, or form, but I also think that my passion, my integrity, my honesty, they call them Gallimore truth bombs, my ability to just say what I mean, and it's just me. I don't know another way to be. And as much as, I think you want to be a great role model, I never looked at myself that way. I was just me. And at the end of the day, when I look back on my career, I feel like being me was good enough, and it's sometimes even better than that, and sometimes maybe not great, but for the most part, all in all, I do feel like I portrayed myself as someone that was there for people and wanted what was best for them.
Do you consider yourself a trailblazer?
I actually, I have this little crystal thing on my desk that I got from something. What was it from? It says that the award is called the Trailblazer Award. So yeah, it's from the Women in Sports. We had there was like some kind of symposium or something, and it says Lesle Gallimore, Trailblazer. So sure, if you have something that says it right on it, right?
It must be true.
It must be true if you've got a little crystal thing on your desk. But I think in women's soccer in particular, yes, because our sport, when I first started playing at Cal, like I said, it was and mind you, there are plenty of women that don't have the notoriety or the spotlight or the sort of ability to be visible and share their stories that I've played with, that I know from the past, that were blazing a trail long before me. But I do feel the growth at the collegiate level in particular, when I first started, we were still club and not varsity completely. That college sports in particular for soccer, it really started to grow at all kinds of levels. I mean, there were 17 programs when I first started playing at Cal, and by the time I leave here at Washington, there's upwards of 335, 340. So just that growth alone, I was definitely on the front end of it. And I think as a female coach, there's a handful of us that I think for our age, we're ready to help programs, and we were prepared because we were given so much responsibility as players and young assistant coaches that we were ready. And then because the sport grew so quickly, I think there's a whole generation of women coaches who I call them the lost generation a little bit. I think we thrust them into positions they weren't ready for. We didn't train them, we didn't mentor them, we didn't give them an opportunity to succeed. And as happens so many times with women in coaching, is the first time you fail, you feel like it's the end of the world, so you just stop. And there aren't a lot of second chances given, and there aren't a lot of women that are strong enough to fail and go back into it because they've had such a bad experience, and that was unfortunate. But I think we've rebounded and we're on the right track now.
That is significant growth that you've seen. How, we just don't see somebody stay at an institution for 25 or 26 years anymore. That you just don't see that kind of longevity. Was that something when you took that job that you thought I could be here forever, or over time it has just been the right job for you in the right place?
It's a combination of all of that, I think. I love it in Seattle and the University of Washington. It had a lot of what I had at Cal. I went I've only had, I've 3 steps in my career as a collegiate coach. I went from Cal as an assistant head coach at San Diego State, which was a great first head coaching job for me in a wonderful city at a great public institution. It was just a little bit different from an academic standpoint than I was used to at Cal, sort of a different demographic that you were recruiting and coaching, and not in a bad way at all. I loved my time at San Diego State, and the players there actually having a 30-year reunion for Amy and I this summer. Mind you, our players that graduated from there are about 4 years younger than us. So it should be a pretty good time. They're all players that their kids have graduated from college, and we've coached some of them. So it's just, it's fun to think about those times back then, and that they care to keep a relationship with us and honor us 30 years later is unbelievable. But when I got to Washington, I did know that this was a place I really wanted to be. And again, I'm a West Coast person. I love the Pac-12. I think it's a tremendous conference because the mission of academics and athletics combined is outstanding. And it's a place where you can win. And there's just a lot of things about it that were right for me. And so when you talk about longevity, I don't think I ever, it was the intention. But after a few years, it was because I had opportunities to interview and look at other schools. And I think sometimes I think back on that time in my life, and I made a lot of decisions on my own and maybe should have, I think in retrospect, should have used more people to help me in my pathway, to help me figure out what, from a business standpoint, for an intercollegiate coach, how you took care of yourself. And it's not that I haven't, been done right by here at the University of Washington. But I do think when you look around as far as retention and being rewarded for that, and it's just not how it necessarily works. And so I think I forewent even talking about being called by other schools or interviewing at other schools to parlay them into something bigger and better for myself here. I wore it on my sleeve. I was very loyal and have been very loyal to this place. It was really apparent after several years that I probably didn't want to go anywhere else. And I don't know that that's the best way business-wise to play our jobs, to be honest. And I talk to young female coaches about that a lot. But I do think that there's this underlying fear with women coaches sometimes that if you talk about leaving, that they're just going to let you go, or they'll think that you're not loyal and they'll be like, okay, fine, we'll get somebody else. So in the beginning, I was very adamant to the administration or to anyone that ever asked, is like, or if I got a call from a school, either within the conference or another program, I never really looked. I was happy here, and I never thought the grass was greener anywhere else. And I was really pretty open about that. And I don't know if that was the smartest way to be honest, but I wouldn't change it. It's who I am. And I've loved my time here. And I feel really blessed and fortunate to have sat in this chair and built something along with my best friend who, has been my associate head coach now for 23 years, in a place where we both have loved being, and women we've loved to coach in a great environment. So, just things you think about along the way, but it was never something I intended to do, but it definitely turned into that.
A dear colleague of mine once gave me great advice when considering a job, and he told me once, don't mess with happy. And that sounds like it was a perfect scenario.
Yeah. That was exactly it. The grass being greener, or trying to, negotiate for X amount of dollars here. And to me, it's always been about, my happiness, my, where I'm comfortable, the environment I want to be in, the environment I want to create and be a part of. And I never looked around and thought, oh, that's awesome over there, or I could win a little easier there, it'd be easier to recruit there. It just wasn't what it was about for me. This was good enough isn't the right word. I have been, and I was always happy here. And I felt like I was always given the opportunity to take part in a collaborative thing that we have here at Washington amongst our coaches and in the athletic department and within the university. And there were so many things that were sort of just intangibles to me that I wouldn't get somewhere else, that maybe you can't see from the outside, but it just wasn't something that I was always looking or had one foot out the door. It was never like that. It never has been.
Well, kudos to you for sticking there and finding you're happy there.
Yeah.
And certainly
100%. Like I said, I just feel lucky because I know it's not normal.
It's not. And sometimes also on the other side, right, from an administrative perspective, it's not necessarily normal, right? You go through a couple bumps along the way and it's easy to say, hey, we're going to start fresh.
Yep, 100%. It's part of what this job is, for sure.
So you've seen a lot of changes in your career. You talked about the significant growth, just even in the number of programs. What are some of the biggest changes you see now versus 15, 20 years ago?
I think the first thing any collegiate coach that's been in it for a long time would tell you are the rules. I think that, the NC2A rules and recruiting rules in particular have changed the landscape of college sports. I think I hate saying minor sports. I hate saying tier 1 sports, but just the way the conferences have split up and that there's Power 5 conferences now. And I think there's probably a little disdain in my voice when I say that, Power 5. I mean, it's obviously it's cool and it's how things have evolved. But there are things, I think those come at a price, not necessarily just dollar amount. There's some things that are sacrificed when you have that kind of growth. And when you're in this environment in a Power 5 conference in Division I with recruiting rules and things being earlier and earlier, I think they strain the mission a little bit. I think you start to lose the plot as to why we do this, that it is about the whole person and not just the athlete. And it's about making sure that student athletes have a great experience and that they are able to be competitive and win and successful through sport, but they learn life lessons through them. The hour limits, even at our level, it's hard to train a kid as much as they need to be trained to be a national team player and if they're not a national team player, to get them to that point, and the amount of time limits we have is tough. But, all these things are in place because athletes, some athletes have been able to have a voice, and or coaches have been abusive with people's hour limits and gone the other way. So the ones that have always kind of followed the rules get punished by it. And again, the sort of making money and who gets what and all of that kind of stuff, it's just changed. And again, not for the worse, not for the better. It's just the evolution has made, I don't know. I think the personability of coaching and the player-coach relationship is one that you have to work a lot harder at now, because of all the ways that student athletes are being pulled and because of the stress and strain that's put on coaches to win.
You led me right into my next question, because with the evolvement of the game, certainly you would have had to likely evolve your coaching style, your coaching philosophy. You just alluded to that player-coach relationship. Talk about how you've had to be a little flexible in your approach to better meet today's student athletes.
Yeah, and I think that's huge, and huge for a lot of people is that, and if you really want to sound old, you say this, technology has changed everything, and just how we communicate as human beings with one another, right? So, the biggest thing that kind of has snuck up on everyone is what that looks like with today's young person, and not even today's young person, with all of us. I don't want to be that person that says, oh, this generation, oh, millennials, oh, Gen X. Oh, it's not the case. It's society. It's the world. It's where we've gone. So the ability to have face-to-face contact with people, it's not as necessary as it used to be. And that's sad to say, because in coaching and in sports, it's 100% the biggest necessity. And being able to have honest conversations that aren't texts or group messages or phone calls, face-to-face two-way conversations where the intent of someone's manner and where they're coming from, to be able to build trust with kids that you're just, spending time with when they're away from home for the first time, it's huge. And it's time consuming. And a lot of that time is taken up by other things. You don't necessarily have that time now like you used to. I joke with one of my former players who was here in my first few years that became a collegiate coach herself. And she laughed at me when she was probably 10 years into her coaching career. She goes, do you remember when I used to come just park myself in your office? She goes, if one of my kids did that to me now, I go, I hope you let them do it. She goes, I do, but I have to tell them, like, hey, I got to work. I got stuff to do. But that was some of my favorite things about coaching is players dropping by. And I don't know, I just feel like life's on a really like a faster wheel now. And that those kind of relationships, you have to carve out that time. So with me, it's been the biggest learning curve over the last, I would say 5 to 8 years, is I have to make sure that those kids know that I have to see them. And it's a two-way street. There's, one of me and 28 of them, and I can come their direction as much as possible, but they have to come my direction too. I have to see them. I have to be able to talk to them and catch up with them, and not just in a formal meeting setting. It's got to be, organic and about other things. But that's two directions. And a lot of kids don't, it's not really how they're wired. So you have to build that kind of environment. And I think that's been one of the most important things for me to learn and see and understand.
Talk about how I think, regardless of sport, any of our coaches listening to this would be interested to hear how you build that environment, how you build that team culture, and how you set aside time to organically meet those athletes.
Yeah, I think it's been something that it's had to kind of slap me in the face a little bit. And I will be honest with you, I let it get away from me. And it used to be that it just kind of happened. And I want to say over the last few years, I started noticing, like, even where my office is located compared to the training table, compared to the weight room, compared to, is it easy for kids to get up here? Is this somewhere they're naturally going to drop by? Should I make them come by? How, and again, this is like just the organic interactions you have with student athletes, where they're not just running from class to training table to the nutritionist to the weight room and you only see them at practice. And the only time that you have a relationship with them is when you're critiquing their play or watching a video or, so I've definitely started to branch out and reach out more because I've seen those kind of interactions happening less and less. So I'll post, my hours and not even necessarily office hours. They kind of call them that, but I don't want it to be that formal, but just to let them know when I'm here, they know that I will always respond to a phone call or a text. You're on 24/7, 365, as a head coach. You just are. And I've always been very responsive to my players when they need something. But as far as seeing them, if I go a long time without seeing a kid, if it's in the off season or it's just the only time I ever see them is at practice, then I definitely reach out and make sure that, that we find a time to get together as individuals. And small group meetings, as far as just kids popping by in groups and having conversations about things outside of soccer, it's that. None of it has to be super formal or from a leadership or a self-help book. I think it's time. And that's with your family and with your kids and with anyone you have a relationship with, is that you have to make time for each other. And it's not just me making time for them. It's a big part of it, but it's them understanding that they need to make time for each other and for us outside of soccer if you want to grow and build that relationship, if it's important to you. And it needs to be important if you want to succeed.
Absolutely. And team culture is such a buzzword, right? And regardless of sport, how much do you work on it intentionally as a team or in practice?
We try to do it as much as we possibly can. Again, it's old dog, new tricks, right? We've done a lot of things with the disc profile. I really try to empower our kids to be leaders, and in different years, you're going to get stronger leaders than others. You're going to have it's kind of the awesome thing about college soccer. It's the awesome thing and it's the difficult thing is a lot of these kids come from backgrounds where they've played on the same club team, the same select team with their buddies some of the time they were 10 on. So 8 years they've been with the same group, the same coach. Well, in college athletics, the team dynamic and the team personality, the leadership changes every year, every 9 months. You lose your seniors, then you have a whole off season, then you gain your freshmen, then your freshmen are there for the fall, you lose your seniors. If you think about it, it's a really weird cycle of building a team. And again, you can have all these great things in place that you always do, but you have to pay attention to the fact that you've got different personalities, and sometimes the same things don't work for the same kids in the same group, and you have to recognize where your dynamics are. Do you have an introverted team, a mature team, a really immature team, an outgoing team? It's just all these things that you're constantly trying to figure out and build on. So, with the personality or sort of the communication styles on our team, trying to figure out what those are and assess those as early as possible and getting them talking with each other about how they like to get feedback, how they like to hear feedback, what their way of delivering it to others, who they work well with, who they struggle with, and why. Conflict resolution is a huge one. There's things we do with inside our team, and There's times we'll bring other people in outside of sport or whatever it is. I mean, we just look for different ways to have the same conversation, basically, is these are all things that are important to being able to function and collaborate within a group effectively and be elite. And so you're right. I mean, there's a lot of people making money off of the word team culture, right? Books and programs. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think there's a lot to be said for it. But I also think when you're the person in charge and you're the leader, you have to have those things that happen and that come to you naturally, and that you have to lead from a place where you feel like you're genuine and you're not making something up out of a book that you want them to follow. And so I think that's always a balance.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, and find what feels true to you and for you to lead in a very authentic way. Yeah,
it's huge. And I'm with you. When you said team, culture is a buzzword, sometimes it makes me cringe, because I think there's times when people say, well, what's your team culture? I think there's a big difference between what you're trying to develop and what your team culture is, as opposed to what your team chemistry is. I think you can develop a culture and have a culture that you bring people into, that you want them to buy into, adhere to, be a part of, et cetera. And you're always trying to make that a culture of high standards and eliteness, where people behave in a way you want them to behave. They perform in a way, they commit to a way that you think is going to help them succeed. Chemistry is a whole different thing. I think team chemistry, again, it changes every year because of the people you have. And if you're not constantly trying to figure out what your chemistry is like and how you need to make adjustments, any coach that wants to go and talk about how great everything is all the time on their team, I want to see who that person is, because it doesn't exist. Everyone has problems, and that's part of it, is how do you resolve those problems? How do you work towards getting better at your communication piece, and getting better at understanding how to resolve something if something bad happens or something comes up that's negative, or finding those players who aren't bought in and how to bring them up to where the standard is. And that's just ongoing. And I don't think there's a magic formula for that. I think there's a lot of things you can do to make those better, but it's constant work, and it's not a cookie cutter formula at all. It's humans. So you're going to get a different thing with every human you interact with.
Yeah. And you said it, every 3, 6, 9 months, you're basically recreating the wheel of people outgoing and incoming freshmen or transfers. And how do you stop a small poison from becoming a big cancer, right? That's like every coach's worst nightmare.
Yep. Yeah, it's something that, like I said, you have to pay attention to. And, nothing is, in my opinion, better than honesty, and I think honesty builds trust. And whether it's easy conversations or hard conversations, and I do believe that that's one of the things that I've seen change probably the most over the last few years, is that hard conversations have become more difficult for people to have for whatever reason. There's this sort of, I don't know. I find it in every realm I work in, and that's just not my personality when I'm as a coaching educator. And again, I'm not. Sometimes I talk about things like this and I go, people must think I'm like the hardest, gnarliest, roughest person on earth, and I'm not. But when I'm delivering feedback, say to a coaching school candidate, I can just see sometimes that I need to sugarcoat it a little bit more, because they're not hearing me, because they just feel so terrible that I'm asking them to make an adjustment in their session. like I just hurt their feelings from correcting them. And my job is to correct them. And again, it's just interesting to me. People sometimes have a really hard time being coached. There's a lot of players that have never been told anything other than you're doing it fine. And so, trying to figure out that coachability piece and how to deliver the feedback to players and to get them to trust you, that even if it's a difficult thing to have to tell them, that it's coming from a place of caring, and, and for them to kind of hang with it for a little while to see how much it can benefit them in the end by being able to take feedback. And it's this ongoing sort of project with individuals, is getting them to this point where they can hear the truth, or at least your truth as a coach, because you're paid to be the expert, right? So it's been interesting, an interesting evolution, I think, in my coaching career, because I really don't. I look back and I think about some of my earliest days coaching, and I don't think I'm wrong when I say, like, I don't remember having to take it so easy on people just from a conversation standpoint, and I feel like I go into most conversations now overthinking it and trying to, figure out, like, how do I say this without, and have them hear it without making them think it's like a personal affront to them or their character, it's interesting.
Yeah. And having to really filter what you say, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I have read or heard a few different podcasts about this now in the academic realm, and it's a thing. The phrase I heard that jarred me the most, that I thought, that's it, is that when you're speaking to a group or you're in a position of leadership or you're a lecturer, or you're talking on a topic that might be a sensitive topic, not even a sensitive topic. It might just be a topic where you feel like it's something that you've been asked to speak to, that about, whatever it is, it's your opinion, that you're always speaking or lecturing or teaching to the most sensitive person in the crowd. And that it's all kind of going this way on campuses, professors, teachers in school, coaches, anyone that's in that realm has to be very, very careful, because they open themselves up to grievances. And sometimes, real things happen because someone has stood up and taught their class, but they've offended somebody, and not knowingly. And there's definitely and maybe not what they would consider to be, or even the normal person or the average person would consider to be, egregious, but it just strikes a chord with someone, and they're able to go and have a grievance or a complaint about it in a public forum or whatever. It's interesting. So I think there's a lot of college professors out there now that feel like their own expertise, what they've been trained to do and talk about, has been thwarted because they're not really allowed to say what they think without being at risk of either getting fired, let go, not paid, whatever. And that's really I think everyone loses in that aspect when you're not allowed to sort of hear things that you might not consider to be favorable to you. I don't know. It's interesting.
It's very interesting. And you said professors. I would bet my life on it that there's probably a lot of coaches that feel that way too.
Yeah, I would think. Yeah, I can see where it's a thing. And like I said, it's been that shift that when you're in the middle of it and you're living it, and it's your everyday life and it's what you've done for a long time, you don't really. It's a little bit of a gradual thing that sneaks up on you. And again, I kind of look back and I think, yeah, that is way different than it used to be. The fact that people come into conversations now, I feel like, way more guarded than they used to be. It's almost like they're just waiting to hear you say the thing that's going to anger them. And it's, and I'm not specifically talking about players but I just, life in general, you go into these different environments and you feel like your conversations have to be tempered as opposed to honest and truthful. And I don't know if it's the best way to operate. I think we all lose in some ways because we don't get people's authentic self.
So I want to know, what keeps you up at night during the season?
Ability to score a goal. Seriously. Yeah. Goal scoring in soccer, our sport, you could be the better team 50% of the time and lose all the time. You could be not the better team and win. Our sport, there's so many variables in soccer that all you can do is prepare and hope that you get a great effort from your team. And it's really difficult to predict wins and losses because soccer is that type of sport, which is what keeps us all coming back, right? So during the season, I would say that, like, planning the next session, trying to figure out how we're going to be better than we were the game before, trying to figure out if I feel like we're not connecting with certain kids, how to get the best out of them, trying to just, it's like being a parent of a huge family. You just are always sort of concerned or worried about, if everyone's doing okay and how you can bring the best out in them. You want them to succeed. You want to see their hard work pay off for them. So it's all of it all the time. And, to think that I've been doing this as long as I have is crazy, because I get young coaches calling me and saying, I do not know how you've done this for so long. And now they've got me thinking, I'm like, God, how have I? So, but just, jokingly, I think that that's part of the fun in it is it's a position where you can coach the sport you love, you can compete at a high level, you can help people reach their sort of dreams and goals. And at the same time, you can heavily influence how young people see themselves, how you empower them, how you get them to understand that they're better than they even think they are. And just be even a small part of their growth as humans it's a really, really powerful thing. And it's a big responsibility. And I've loved that responsibility.
So how have you done it, right? 25, 26 seasons. You talked already about it being 24/7, 365. How have you continued to feed and nourish the personal side of you that allows you to be at your best professionally?
Yeah, that's, that I think that is everyone's toughest challenge. And I would say that, maybe boldly, I don't know. I've kind of looked back now and I see where it's been even more difficult as a female coach, to be honest, because, whether you're single or in a same-sex marriage or a different sex marriage or no marriage at all, if you're a single mother like I was, if you have an assistant coach who is married and has kids, it's all these different things and your different support systems, and you have to be very aware of how you manage all of that. And as a female, I feel as though you're always trying to handle all of it, and so you have to really be mindful of how that management takes place, or it can swallow you up and you'll resent it, and you never want to end up in your job where you feel resentful towards it. And I've caught myself in that several times when things in either my personal life or, my family life, just other things going on, being too busy, with things I've chosen, mind you, and saying yes to too many things have spread me out to the point where I don't feel like I'm doing a great job at everything or at anything. So I've learned, I've been in all of those places at one point in time. I look back and I think, those are also part of the reason I've been able to do this for so long, is because I've loved everything I've done. Even the difficult things have been things that have helped me as a person grow, and I wouldn't change the experience because the next time something feels that difficult, I've been in that situation before and I've handled it, and they've been rewarding. Getting on the other side of something difficult in any realm of life is amazing. And I feel like I've done that over and over and over again because I've been given that opportunity either as a player, as a coach, or a mentor, or a leader in other realms of things I do outside of soccer. So, it's adrenaline to me to be able to be in a position where there's a challenge and an obstacle and I can get through it. I don't mind falling on my face, to be honest. I relish the opportunity to get better from it. And I think I've always just been that way. And again, I've been a lot more fortunate than some other people to not have very many bumps or steps in my road and my pathway as a coach, but it's not like it's been perfect. I've had plenty of losing seasons. I've had times where I've called into question my own ability. My confidence has been knocked. I've had player issues. I've had, I've had deaths, and 9/11 happened while I worked here. And there's been, every single thing that you can think has happened. You think you've seen it all. The next thing comes around the corner that you're like, well, I've never encountered that before. So it's all these, things in life that are speed bumps, and that's how I see them. Is it's always something you can either slow down and get through it and take your time to get it. You can go around it. You can stop and give in. And I don't think that I've ever been that type of person. And I hope that for my players, that's the part that they understand, that it does. It clicks sometimes way down the line with them where they realize, oh, that's why she made us go through that, and she didn't let me stop. So again, I would say the longevity comes from loving it, and even the hard parts, the difficult parts, and the challenge of it, and knowing that it's given me something in my life that has just been invaluable. The people in my life, and good, bad, or indifferent, every single person I've encountered in person that I've been able to work with and coach has been someone that I've gotten something from, and that's I know now, looking back, a very unique thing in life. A lot of people don't get what I've had, and I feel blessed.
Those speed bumps are going to look a lot different at this time next year. Let me tell you what.
Please do tell me.
Well, I don't have any words of wisdom for you, but I do want to know next year at this time when you're not preparing for a preseason, what are you going to miss the most?
Yep. That, preparing, the excitement of it, the adrenaline of it, and I get asked this question a lot. I don't know what I'm doing next. I know whatever I do, it'll be something where I feel like I can have an impact in a positive way. Will it be in soccer? Probably. Will it have something to do with sport? More than likely. Will it have something to do with empowering women? Almost assuredly. And at the same time, I look back and I also feel as though, when December rolls around and however this next part of my journey goes to end at Washington, that I need to breathe a little bit, to be perfectly honest with you. There's just, you come to this point in your life that you're just like, you realize you haven't taken a breath, a deep one. And I look forward to that. Doesn't mean I'm going to be sitting around doing nothing, but I do think taking time to reflect and breathe and be sure about the next thing that I do is important for me. And to also probably spend some time figuring out in my life, my circle is so broad. I do think I owe it to the people that are closer to me to spend time with the people I've probably neglected the most because I've loved my players so much that, there's times where you neglect the people that, you should be spending time with too. And so I think there's all kinds of great things coming ahead for me where I can be better for some people that I need to be better for.
I have no doubt there's a plethora of great things coming for you.
Well, I appreciate it, Megan. I hope so. I think so too.
So we end every episode with what we call rapid fire. I'm going to rip off some questions to you and you come back to me with what comes first to mind.
Oh boy. You can edit this, right?
We can edit it, but I promise it'll be fun.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm up for it.
What's your favorite app on your phone?
Ooh, the Speedy Doc.
I don't even know what that is.
You know what that is? See, I thought I'd throw you for a loop. Speedy Doc is the app I go on for the people at the boat launch to put my boat in the water for me.
I love it. See, that's what you can do.
It means I'm going to actually go out on my boat that day and relax and just hear the water and be out in the middle of nowhere and reflect. So Speedy Doc is my favorite app. I don't use it as much as I'd like, and you can only use it certain times of year here in Seattle. So if I'm using the Speedy Doc app, it means the weather here is nice and it's a beautiful day and I can get out on the lake and just, enjoy myself.
It sounds like a great place to breathe in retirement.
100%.
If you wouldn't have been a coach, what profession would you have chosen?
Ooh, I actually probably would have been a lawyer, and someone that advocated for people. If I would have had the gumption to finish law school and crank through the last 2 years of it after I finished 1 year, I think there's a lot of things. I think a law degree is a great degree to have, and there's so many different things you could do with it. I love the schooling part of it. I just lived in San Francisco at a time where there was one lawyer for every 15 people. So there was a glut of really miserable attorneys. So it didn't seem appealing to me at the time. So I would have either been a lawyer or I think I would have been a writer.
Can you sing? What's your go-to karaoke song?
Oh my God, absolutely. I cannot sing anything Bruce Springsteen because I think you can be off key and get away with it and just shout. So anything that the boss sings, I'm pretty good with. I don't have a horrible voice, but I definitely know enough people that have great voices that I don't profess to be. I love music and I love singing and I love anyone that plays an instrument or can draw. Anyone in the arts are people that I admire highly. Go-to karaoke? Ooh, don't have one.
I know you've traveled the world. What's your favorite place that you visited?
Oh boy. Whew. I have to tell you, we took our team to Japan last spring, and I've been a lot of places. I've been to China, I've been to Morocco, I've been to Ethiopia. Japan was one of the best overall group experiences I've ever had. Brazil, I would say is too. Japan, the food, the people, the culture, the way they treat you, how tidy it is, how they can fit all those people on the small islands and still function. Gets my OCD going. Amy told me before we went, because she'd been before, she's like, oh God, you're going to love it there. There's no trash. So Anyway, I love Japan. I go back in a heartbeat.
Awesome. I love it. Last one for you. What's your best Gallimore truth bomb?
Oh, just right between the eyes. You need to be better. You need to be better, and you can be better.
Simple. I like it. Well, I know I speak on behalf of our entire coaching community when I say thank you for all you've done for women in coaching, women in soccer, the game of soccer itself. We wish you the best of luck in your final season here coming up.
Thanks so much, Megan. I really appreciate you guys having me on. It's flattering. It's an honor. And I've had a lot of things coming my way this last year since January that we kind of joked, and it's not actually funny, but there's a lot of things that have been said to me and about me, and honors I've been given that, a lot of people don't hear about themselves until after they die. And what a blessing that is. The love that has come my way has made it all worth it. It's been invaluable. And I can't say how overwhelmed I've been. It's been tremendous.
And all well-deserved, my friend.
Oh, thank you so much.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you want more of what you heard, please visit our 9 Days of Giving campaign to financially impact more women in the profession. Information can be found on our website at WeCOACHSports.org. Listeners, we want to hear from you. Share your comments on Twitter at WeCOACH and at Wisp Sports, or on Facebook at WeCOACH Sports and at Wisp Sports. The show notes for this episode can be found on our show page at wispsports.com. Make sure to subscribe to Wisp Sports in your podcast app to catch each new episode dropping every other Thursday. Until next time, all sports, one voice, WeCOACH.